Howdy Beans, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Howdy Beans podcast. I'm your host, Luke the Elder Bean. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're all good, as per usual. Today we're going to be diving back into the world of Torchwood with book 3 of my Torchwood book review series called Slow Decay. I absolutely love and adore this book, but before we get into all of that and more, I want to do with housekeeping, because I like to keep my house nice and clean. So make sure that you follow me on Twitter, howdybeans_pod. Make sure if you listen to this on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And finally, if you listen to this on Spotify, don't forget to leave me a follow and rate the podcast 5 stars. Currently, as of recording this, I think I'm at 138 followers so far. So if I can get to 140 by Christmas, that would be absolutely incredible, and I would appreciate you all greatly. Also, one more thing. The podcast is now on TikTok. I know I feel like an old man saying that, but the podcast is on TikTok. So if you're on TikTok and you want to follow me there as well, just type in the Howdy Beans podcast and give me a follow and check me out on there. So as I mentioned, we're going to be looking at Torchwood Slow Decay by Andy Lane. For anybody that doesn't know, anybody that is started here fresh, the reason that I'm doing this book review series is the fact of I have now watched and reviewed series 1 of Torchwood. So if you want to go back and check that out, please do. I had an absolutely brilliant time with Torchwood, and I'm really hankering to get around to watching series 2, but I've got to watch series 3 of Doctor Who first before I can do Torchwood series 2. So these books have been a great sort of filler, shall we say, for that craving that I've had for Torchwood. So if you want to go back and check that review out, please do. Also, another reason why I'm only reading the first 3 books of the Torchwood series is the fact of when Torchwood series 1 came out, 3 books were released, and then series 2 came out. So because I like my continuity and I like to keep up with the lore and all that kind of stuff, that I've just decided to read the first 3 books, and then I'll move on to sort of Doctor Who series 3 with the Doctor and Martha. So please do go back and check out all the other books I reviewed. So far I've reviewed Another Life by Peter Angeles, and then last one I did was Border Princes by Dan Abnett. So please do go back and check them out, as well as my review of series 1 of Torchwood. So today we're going to be talking about Slow Decay by Andy Lane. The blurb on the back goes as followed. When Torchwood track an energy surge to a Cardiff nightclub, the team finds the police are already at the scene. 5 teenagers have died in a fight, and lying amongst the bodies is an extraterrestrial device. Next morning, they discover the corpse of a weevil, its face and neck eaten away, seemingly by human teeth. And on the streets of Cardiff, an ordinary woman with an extraordinary hunger is attacking people and eating her victims. The job of a lifetime it might be, but working for Torchwood is putting big strains on Gwen's relationship with Reese, while she decides to spice up their love life with the help of alien technology. Reese decides it's time to sort himself out, better music, healthier food, lose some weight. Luckily, a friend has mentioned Dr. Scott's weight loss clinic. And that is the synopsis for this story. So as for my first impressions, as I mentioned quickly at the beginning, I'm absolutely enthralled. I really, really love and adore this book so far. It is fantastic. I would even go as far as to say it's the best of the 3, in my opinion. It is funny. It is horny. Like, it's very naughty. Like, to be honest, out of all of them, this is probably the most sexual of them all. And, like, you know, not just to be sexy and naughty and horny for sort of no apparent reason other than it's Torchwood. Like, there is a contextual story reason why it's so horny. It's just one of those things of, like, when you read the first book, and there's a little bit of horny in that one, but then it's mostly very science fiction-y. Then you read the second book, and there's not really many horny things. And then you read this book, you're like, bloody hell, you know, it's really stepping up sort of the Torchwood game of, like, it's doing better than the show at times, to be honest. But I digress. That's just one part of it. You know, the story's interesting so far. I've read about 107 pages in. Normally, when I do a book review, I read about 50 pages and I sort of get the gist of what's going on, and then I tend to do the introduction. But with this one, because I am so sort of drawn into the story and what's happening, and the whole twist, and like what's the whole point of the story? Like, what's the case that they're working on? Like, who is this person that's killing the Weevils? You know, what is how does it link into these alien devices that make you feel other people's emotions and stuff like that? Like what is the point of it all? Like, I'm so enthralled in that story that I'm reading and reading and reading, and I'm just in awe. Yeah, I really, really like it. Like, the writing's fantastic. The characters are so well done. Like I said, it's funny. There's bits that's brutal. There's bits of lore and sort of contextual things with the world building, which is brilliant. Like, I've said this. I think I said this with Another Life, and I said this with Border Princes at the end. But I have a fascination with Weevils. I don't know why. The whole idea of Weevils really fascinated me from watching the first series, and I did want more Weevils. And it's kind of like it's people in the past heard me in the future, because this book is centered not completely, but it focuses on Weevils for a good chunk of it, and Weevil lore. And I've learnt more about Weevils, and I've learnt that Weevils aren't just mindless, carnivorous beasts that just live in the sewers and periodically come up and kill people for food. Like, no, they've got a community. Like, they mourn their dead. You know, when one of their others, one of their sort of companions or tribesmen, I don't really know at this point, but whenever another one of their species dies, no matter how far away a weevil is, they just know, and they whistle, and it's a very sad and somber sort of whistle, and that's how they mourn their dead, and it's so lovely, you know. And you wouldn't expect it from a weevil, but it's so nice to know that, because just to be proven right. Like, I always knew there was more to weevils than just mindless killers. I just had that innate sense. I couldn't really explain it, and this book really expands upon that. I'm like, yes, I knew it. I knew there was more to them, and I think that's just brilliant. You know what I mean? And like this, there's one scene which I won't give context. I'll wait until that to review. But there's this one scene where the group, the team, they're surrounded by weevils while they're hovering over a dead one, and they know they're there, and the weevils could easily attack Jack and the team, but they don't. They just sit there and they whistle and they watch. And Jack goes, "I think it's time to leave." And you got Owen like, "Can we leave?" And Jack's like, I think we haven't got a choice. We either leave or we be part of it." So they back away, they leave, and as they leave, they just see these creatures come out the shadows, and then they surround this body, and it's quite beautiful, really, in a sad, morbid kind of way. But I love it for that. I love it for the expansion of Weevils, the expansion of the lore, the world building. One of the things that, you know, in this book that it deals with, like Gwen and Reese's relationship, and I don't know if I mentioned this in my review of series 1, but one thing that kind of not annoys me, but kind of makes me feel sorry for specifically for Reese, is the fact of, you know, Gwen loves Reese, Reese loves Gwen, but Reese is left out of the loop. He's put in the shadow, really, of what Gwen is doing, and you know, for good reason, because trying to protect him. But the problem is the fact of, and again, I love Gwen to bits. I really, really do. I love her character, and I love the actress. But Gwen is a bit of a sort of a hoe. She sleeps around, you know. She sleeps around with Owen, and she messes around with other people as well. And she slept with the other guy in the last book as well, from Border Princes. And it's one of these where it's like, Reese doesn't cheat. He hasn't cheated. He's not allowed to cheat. Not that I don't think he ever would, because he really does love Gwen. But Gwen's allowed to have this other life and do all this other stuff, and it's completely fine. I just never thought that was fair. So I really like it in this book, where you have a bit more focus on their relationship, where you can see, like, they're on the edge of, like, trying to make it work. And Reese is really trying, and Gwen's really trying, but because of her job, they're not being able to do what they know. Like, sex is boring, you know, watching TV and cuddling. They don't even cuddle anymore. Like, they get in from work. Gwen's tired. Reese is tired from work. They don't even order, like, they order takeout and then they go to sleep. Or, like, when they do have sex and stuff like that, it's very boring and mundane. And I like how it expands upon that, and expands on how, you know, this idea that Gwen is taking technology, alien technology, and trying to use it to improve their love life, their sex life, and stuff like that. But also at the same stage, contextually, you learn more about what this device is and how dangerous this device is. That, yes, it can heighten your sex drive. So if you're really, really turned on, it'll put your normal turned on to make you sort of like a sex mad maniac, you know what I mean? And it heightens your orgasms and stuff like that. But the problem is, if you go from really, really turned on to really depressed very quickly, it enhances that. So it's not just depression, it's major depression. It's like the worst depression you've ever felt, and it's not just you, it's everybody in your surrounding is affected by this as well. And this is the power of this alien device, and why Jack doesn't allow alien devices to be taken out of the hub. Once they've got them and catalogued them and somewhat know what they do, they stay in the archives forever. And it's that little world building and things like that. But I'm also trying to figure out, how does these emotional devices that they've got, how does it link into what's going on with this creature that's killing Weevils? How does it link in with everything else? So I love it. I really, really do. Like, I am just enthralled, and that's why I'm so far in, because these books are only about 230 pages, so I'm about halfway through. But that's the reason why I just kept reading, because I'm just like, I just want to know more. I'm so fascinated, and it's hard nowadays to find a book, and I'm not just about sort of tie-in books. I'm on about books in general. To find a book that's long or short where you read it and go, you know what, I'm enthralled, I'm drawn in, and I really, really am. And Andy Lane is just fantastic here. And again, it's early days, but I'm really getting close to say that I think that this book is the best of the three so far. And I would even rank them as Slow Decay, Border Princes, and Another Life, if I had to rate them, to be honest, because they're just really, really good. But, it's early days now. Like I said, I've still got half of the way of the book to read. I'm on chapter 9. I'm just about to start chapter 9 after I finish this introduction, and I'll sort of continue reading. But I'm so excited. I am. I'm just on tenterhooks. So that is everything for my first impressions. That's everything I've got to say for the introduction. By all means, please do go off and check out my review of the other 2 books, as well as my review of Series 1. And then when we come back after this little interlude, I'll give you my first impressions, my thoughts on the story and on the characters, sort of the book's continuity, how it links in with the show, and then my overall thoughts. So until then, I'll see you all very soon. And welcome back, everybody. So I have now finished Slow Decay, and honestly, I will put my whole heart in this by saying this is in my opinion, because I have to state that because people get angry online, in my opinion, and granted I've only read 3 books so far in the Torchwood series, but that being said, in my opinion, this is the best Torchwood book I have read. Out of the 3 books, this is the best one. It's the best written, it's the most interesting, it's the most compelling. Like, not to say that Another Life and Border Princes were bad, not at all. They were both had their own merits, and I do still feel bad for Peter Angles from the first book having to spend majority of his book setting up the world, which is a bit of a shame, but still, his book was good. Dan Abnett with Border Princes was really, really good. Like, that was at the top of my list after I read that one. But now it's been dethroned by Slow Decay. What Andy Lane was able to do here was absolutely brilliant. Like, I was enraptured to the point where, like I said in the introduction, I just kept wanting to read. Like, whenever I wasn't doing anything, I was looking for the book. I was reading, taking down notes. I was spending so much time in this world with these characters that I kind of, I would have happily have it gone on for longer. Like, the book's only about 250 pages, but I would have happily got up to 300 to 350, just not that he needed it, not that he needed an extension. I think the book is as long as it needs to be. It is a perfect, compact story. I just was so in awe with the story that I would have happily spent more time with this plot and what goes on with it, which I'll explain more details on that in a little bit. But overall, I think generally it's one of the best I've read so far, and it's a real shame that one of the best to do of all time so far, Andy Lane, hasn't written any more Torchwood sort of adventure novels. I think he's written a compendium for Series 1 or Series 2, which has all of the things that happened in that series. And I think he also wrote a Dark Archives book, basically going through the archives of all the different monsters and creatures that show up in the Torchwood series. But this is actually the only adventure book he's done. He's done some Doctor Who as well, and I've read one of his, I've listened to one of the Sarah Jane audio adventures that he wrote, which I can't remember how I felt about that one, because the Sarah Jane audio adventures are a bit hit or miss. Some are really good, some are not, some retcons things, and it's a bit of a mixed bag for those. So I can't remember how I felt about that one. But for a guy that mostly writes TV and movie adaptation novels that just retell what happened in the films, for him to do that and then do this and then just be so good at it, I'm like, well, why didn't the publishers go, we need to get Andy Lane, we need to get this man to do more, because he has just a way of writing, and he has a way of making you care about characters. Like, I cared about these characters already. I cared about all of them, but he made me care individually. He made me care about Gwen and Reese's relationship. Now, like I said, it's not that I dislike Reese. I think Reese is an interesting character. It's just the fact of, you don't get enough of him in the series to really care about him. He's mostly just there. He's kind of, Gwen's love interest or complicated love interest. But in this, Reese takes more of a sort of a direct involvement in the story, a really, really direct involvement in the story. And you spend a lot more time with him. There's no other sort of Torchwood team. It's just him, his inner monologue, his day-to-day, his way of, his perspective on his and Gwen's relationship, his perspective on Gwen's new job as this special operations in Torchwood and what it means, and the fact that he never gets to see her anymore, that he still loves her, but he's finding it really difficult, and he has to go through such a big change and literal change for her to potentially see him as a person. And I'm like, I'm caring about Reese, a character that's important, but really in series 1, he's mostly just there. He doesn't do much other than just be somebody there that Gwen's struggling with, not to kind of put down Reese as a character, but I just love the expansion more of his character. He also has, there's a moment in the story where I won't go into full details about this one because it's a really nice scene, and readers want to find this one for themselves, but there's a scene in the book where Owen is talking to somebody, and he's having a real heart-to-heart with them, and they're asking him questions of like, why did he become a doctor, how he ended up joining Torchwood and stuff like that. And he goes through this tale of like, he always wanted to help people. He lived in a working class sort of family. They worked in factories. His friends and neighbors, they all worked in factories, and he knew that he didn't want that sort of life. So he pushed himself to do more. He wanted to help people, and he became a doctor, and years of training. And then he found himself in Torchwood, and he's helping people, but he misses being able to be the doctor, actually look for and help people in a surgery and that sort of thing. And it's so incredible, like the world building and the writing, where I'm just sitting there thinking, this guy's so good. This guy's brilliant. No wonder companies and production officers and all that are coming to him of like, we need you to write the story for our movie or whatever, because you're just really good. And it kind of reminds me of Terrence Dicks. So anybody who's a Doctor Who fan knows who Terrence Dicks is. Terrence Dicks, he wrote majority of the Doctor Who TV episode tie-in novels, the Target novelization novels. He wrote many of those, and he is touted as being one of the best. And I think he wrote majority of them. I've got a magazine that goes into depths of it all. I think he wrote most of them. But he's most widely known for that because he had a way of expanding the lore, expanding the stories, putting in more depth. And even though he was writing what was on the screen, he would add his own things, and he would just flush out the world and everything so much more. And he is so beloved because of that. And I hate myself for saying this, but I haven't read many of his books, but I do want to change that one day. But Andy Lane reminds me of that. He's just one of them people that he's an underrated author that, you wouldn't think that he'd be any good, but then when you read his stuff, you're like, damn, this guy's really good at expanding worlds. And it sounds crazy, but I'm almost sort of thinking about, should I buy, some of the books that he's done, tie-in novels of movies and that, just to kind of get more of his writing, just so I can devour more of him. Like he's really, really good. So I just wanted to gush over the writer at the beginning of this. I do apologize. It was one of the biggest part of my notes, was just how good he is as a writer. But, putting that to one side, sort of the story and the characters. So the way the story is told, it's very much kind of like a creepy sort of horror story in a way, but in a scientific sort of horror. It's kind of like Aliens at some parts of the story, to be honest, because the idea and concept is that there's this new. I'm trying to go into words without spoiling it. There's this new clinic that's opened up. And what this clinic does, it gives you 2 tablets, start and stop. So you take the tablet, the start, and then you start losing weight. And then when you feel like you get to the weight that you're happy with, you take the stop, and then it ends, right? That's the beginning of it. And it sounds quite basic, but there's more to it, because the problem is, say, for example, argument's sake, you're 15 stone. You're a bit chunky, you're a bit fluffy, but you want to get down to say like 10 and a half to about 9 stone. That's what you want to get down to, right? So you take this pill, and drastically overnight, you will start losing weight day by day, but you have a huge appetite. So you'll eat and eat and eat and eat and eat, but you're still losing weight. And the problem is the fact of the more that you eat, it never really sort of feeds that hunger. You are constantly being hungry. So you just eat and eat and eat and eat, and then you've eaten everything in the house. And this is where the Torchwood side comes into it, because you have this ever growing hunger, but you're getting you're getting stronger, but you're also getting weaker. You're losing weight. You're getting almost anorexic. You're getting really, really skinny, but you still get this appetite. And eventually it gets to the point where you start going for prey. And that could be dogs, that could be cats, that could be mice, rats, birds, people. And that's where Torchwood comes in, when the people are showing up with human teeth marks in them, and the pieces of face are being eaten off. It's really gruesome and really detailed, where like people's fingers have been eaten off, eyeballs have been sucked out, the skulls and all that. And it's even got to a point where even weevils have been attacked, and even weevils. Again, I've got this whole section about weevils I'm going to get into at the end. I won't get into it now, but I'll get into it at the end. But even the weevils are terrified of this creature or creatures or whatever it is that's attacking it. And for me, that's insane. And it is for the Torchwood crew as well, because it's the fact of, well, weevils are carnivorous pack hunters. They're very, very strong. And like, what can something be to terrify a whole group of weevils to the point where a whole pack of them would be terrified to take whatever this creature is on, and will do whatever they can to avoid it and go around without being seen or heard in a very sneakily scared manner. Terrifying, that idea and concept that something like that exists in Cardiff, which terrifies Torchwood, and the whole story. And this is where you get really drawn into the story. And again, I don't want to go into spoilers, because again, like Border Princes, I want the audience, I want you guys to experience this book fully without knowing as little as possible, but also trying my best to explain why this is so good. So you've got that side story going on, these things that are eating people, and how that's involved with these pills, and how involved with this clinic, which, funny enough, it's a little side thing. So the clinic is Dr. Scott's, or Scott's, Scotus. But to be honest, as I was reading, I kept calling him Dr. Scrotus, or Scrotum. I know that's not how you pronounce it, but it just made me laugh how my brain was like, I know how it's said, but I kept calling him Dr. Scrotus, to the point to the end of the book I was just calling him Scrotus because it's easier. That's not what his name is. It just made me giggle because it looked like Scrotus. When my dyslexic brain, when I first looked at it, I thought it was like Scrotus. I was like, oh, Scrotus, Scrotum, because it makes sense for a Torchwood book to be sort of cheeky. But yeah, so how that links in with that. Then you have this other sort of side plot, and it's more of a side plot, really. It's not as important as that main plot with the people eating other people sort of thing. So you've got this other side plot where there's this nightclub, and these lads have basically torn themselves to pieces. They've killed each other, and Torchwood goes in and tries to figure out what's happened. And it turns out there's this alien device that is like an emotional inhibitor. So basically, if you are really happy and you point it at somebody, whoever you pointed at, or whoever's in that cone of that beam of energy that you pointed at, they also will feel very happy. And how it works is the fact of it just bolsters that. So if you're feeling really happy, that person's going to feel tenfold. That person's going to feel really, really on cloud nine. The problem is, and I think I mentioned this in introduction, if you get a feeling where you feel really lonely, even if it's just a little sliver of this little bit of loneliness seeps in, that's tenfold. So they feel really lonely and depressed. And there's a moment, I think, again, I talked about in the introduction, where Gwen takes it home to improve her and Reese's love life, and it works. They both get really horny, they both get really sexual, and they have amazing orgasms and blah, blah, blah. And it's all great. It's fantastic. Like, Gwen's like, oh, finally, brilliant. We've rekindled that spark we had when we first met. The problem is, I think Gwen gets a little bit of doubt in herself or something like that, and then how quickly it doesn't get violent, but how quickly it gets close to being argumentative and violent, to the point where she has to go over and turn it off, because it could end up ripping each other's throats out. And as I'm reading through the story, I'm going through it. I'm trying to figure out, how is it that this device links in with this clinic. And I'm not going to spoil it, but it leads to a really lovely ending. It leads to an ending that has a pretty good message, to be honest. And again, I don't want to spoil it at all, but it's got a pretty good message with the ending. And it does link in quite well. It's not completely, how can I say in a way that's not spoilerific? It's not completely linked where they're both inseparable, where like they are like one in the same in terms of they're really integral to each other. It's more just the fact of they have they again, I don't have to go into detail without spoiling it. Basically, they're both important. It's just the clinic and sort of the pill and sort of the people eating thing is more important to the story and narrative than the emotional device and devices that Tosh is dealing with. But it does wrap up really nicely, and it makes a lot more sense when you get to the end of the story and how they end up using this device and this technology. It's quite clever, really. But there's a lot of messages in this book. There's a lot of quotes and there's a lot of messages where you're sitting there thinking, that's really in-depth, that is. Like for a Torchwood book, that's really insightful. That's very philosophical. You know, some of the things they're coming out with, I'm like, damn, this, again, I come back to it. The author's really, really good. And I'm sitting there like, he's fantastic. He really is good. I'm like, why is this guy not more renowned? Like, why have I not, why is he not writing more books? Like, not just Torchwood, just books in general. Like, this guy's really good. But, either way, I digress. I'm absolutely sort of enthralled by the author, obviously. But yeah, so the story is really fascinating, really good, and it links into sort of this idea of these new characters that you get. So you get Lucy, you get Marianne, you get these two women who have taken these pills, but they're too far along, they're too far gone, and Reese has taken one of these pills as well, but Reese it doesn't get as far as these girls do, but to the point where these girls like they're just pure primal urge is to feed this hunger. So they're going to nightclubs and they're getting young men who are just like, oh, she's sexy, she's gorgeous, and they lure them away, and when they lure them away they just devour them and eat them. And you even get a nice moment where it's a really heart-to-heart moment with one of these girls, Marianne. You do feel really sorry for her, and how the whole story links in of why is it that the pills are making them feel this way, why they're losing weight but they are so hungry. And again, it links into the title of the story, Slow Decay, because it is a slow decay. Even though they're losing weight rapidly, they're slowly losing themselves. They're losing their weight, but they're also losing their mental stability. They're using their sort of humanity. They're going back to being very primal, and I'm not going to spoil what it is, but when you find out what it is, what's causing them to be this way, what the pills are and how it links in with this clinic, it's quite brilliant, to be honest. It's quite clever, and I really love it for that, to be honest. It's not as like, it's not like Border Princes where it was like a selection of 3 different sort of cases, then all sort of came together as one big case at the end. This is just like one solid case. But I just feel like this idea that the book has where, you're beautiful, again, without sounding cheesy, but you're beautiful how you are. You know what I mean? It's not about the physical change. It's about how you can change but still be yourself. You know what I mean? It's that idea of you're perfect how you are. Change if you want, but only change if for you. Don't change for anybody else. And be yourself. Always be yourself. And I feel like for a Torchwood book, again, that's really deep. And I guess kids and teens are the sort of target market. Those are the ones that we watch. And obviously, that's a really big message, especially for the younger audiences to know. But I was like, that's really, really good. But also, it's still a Torchwood book. It's very horny. It's very cheeky. It's very sexual. There are some moments where, like, some of the things that Jack comes out with, Owen comes out with, like, you expect it off Owen, but when you hear it coming from Jack, you're like, oh, okay, that was a bit much. Didn't need that, or I wouldn't believe that Jack would say that in that situation. But it can be very naughty, it can be very cheeky. But again, I've come to expect that with Torchwood at this point. It's almost got to the point when it's not there. It's almost that fact of, oh, it doesn't feel like Torchwood if it's not horny. I know it sounds silly to say, but you watch the series, you know what I mean. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great, and it's kind of a shame that this is sort of the last one. Obviously, I know there's more Torchwood books after this one, but it's kind of a shame it has to stop here because it stops on such a high that part of me just wants to keep reading and see if the other authors that come next that wrote for series 2 in terms of the books that came out during series 2, how they fare, how they do. I know Peter Angles, he writes another book as well, so I'm looking forward to that. Kind of give him a second chance now that he's got another opportunity to really not have to worry about flushing out the world anymore. Like the world's already established. He can just sort of carry on with his story. So I'm looking forward to that. But it is a shame that Andy Lane hasn't written anymore because he is just really, really good, to be honest. And it's a shame with Dan Abnett as well. Like Dan Abnett, really good, fantastic author, but he didn't write anymore, which admittedly fair enough, because let's be honest with ourselves, Dan Abnett, he's really busy with the Warhammer 40k novels and he does a really good job at them. So it makes complete sense. But yeah, I just really, really love this author and I just think he's fantastic. He has wrote other Doctor Who books as well. Doctor Who All Consuming Fire, Doctor Who The Empire of Glass, Doctor Who Lucifer Rising, Doctor Who The Malange Murders, Doctor Who Original Sin. He's done some Django and Lightfoot stories, which that's part of Doctor Who, which I haven't experienced yet. So he has wrote other Doctor Who novels, but he hasn't written any other Torchwood ones I could find, which is a bit of a shame. But he's still writing, so he's done like the World of Austin Powers, the World of Wallace and Gromit, other random things he's done. He's done the Babylon Files. He's done the Bond Files. He's done loads of other little things. Oh, the Torchwood, the official magazine yearbook. So he's done other little things here. I think he's mostly done a lot of Doctor Who stuff. But the point is I'm trying to make here is the fact of somebody who writes a lot of things. You would just think that he would be more popular because he's just so good. But yeah, I just think he's really. He even did stuff for Creating Creature Comforts, the award-winning series. He wrote a book about that, movie stunts and special effects. Wow, you know what I mean? He did the Magic Roundabout, the World of the Magic Roundabout for the movie that came out in like 2005, if anybody remembers that one. But I just think that's great. Anyway, that's me done gushing. That's me done gushing. As for sort of continuity, so one thing that I love to do when I read these books is look for continuity of how they link in with the series and how they link in with things in Torchwood overall. So Gwen she secretly takes an emotional inhibitor, which is that device, from the hub to use in her private life, as I mentioned with her and Reese's sort of sexual life. But also that is continuity because that links into the fact of that many of the team used to borrow alien artifacts as well. I think that was in episode 2 or episode 1, Everything Changes, where you get to see them. I think if I remember correctly, I think Tosh takes a device that makes her look young and beautiful, I think. And Owen takes this, I would say probably pheromone spray or whatever you want to call it. It's funny as I say that I'm reminded of the sex spray from Bottom. But he takes the spray and he sprays it on himself, and then he goes to a bar and he ends up like pulling like a bloke and 2 women and stuff like that. And I think Susie, she takes the gauntlet and stuff like that. So that's the continuity there, which I really enjoyed. Tosh finds Yanto acting strangely around a chamber in Torchwood archives. Again, this links into the Cyber Moment episode, which I really like that. It's happened in 2 books. It happened in Another Life and it's happened in this one. And what I like about that is the fact of it kind of, for me, as a fan and as a viewer of the series, it puts in perspective as where the story takes place. So this takes place, obviously, before the events of the Cyberwoman, which is the episode where Yanto's girlfriend is in the basement and she's half human, half cyber lady, cyber woman, and that story. So I like that little sort of that moment because he does act strange in the archives. Obviously, I know why, but the characters don't know as to why as of yet because that episode hasn't happened. But I like it when it does pop up in these books because you know where it is in terms of the story. So I really, really like it for that. Tosh again calls Operation Goldenrod. Now, this was mentioned in Another Life. the first book, and I knew I recognized it, and it was one of them things of I felt like I was going crazy because I was sitting there thinking, I feel like I've missed an episode because it keeps getting mentioned, but I don't know in terms of what it is or what happened. And I ended up having to Google it, go to the Doctor Who wiki. And it turns out, so Operation Goldenrod was a chaotic event involving Torchwood 3. It took place while Susie Callisto was part of the team. Tosh had worked for between 48 and 72 hours on a complex piece of alien technology, which kept reconfiguring itself while she worked. Thinking back to the events, what Tosh remembered about all these were the people which had been melted together during sexual congress by Goldenrod. Their flesh had been joined, forming teratological monstrosities which Owen Harper tried to separate, leaving deformity and death behind him. Tosh and Owen recalled Operation Goldenrod, with Owen commenting that he saw Jack Harkness in a whole new light following the incident. Yanto was highly secretive about a chamber in the archive set aside for the remnants of Operation Goldenrod. I want to know what happens here. So something happened where this technology kept reconfiguring when she was trying to figure it out, and it meant that while people was having sex with each other, it would Cronenbergian, this is my theory, Cronenbergian sort of melded them together. And that's it, really. I hope this is like a small side Easter egg plot that is mentioned more in more of the books. So the more that I read them, they pop up more and I learn more about this sort of event. Maybe not. Maybe I never will. Maybe it's just in these first 3 books. But just the idea that there was another case before Gwen with Susie, and it involves that original sort of 3 team. I love that. So I wanted to mention that. And then Jack asked Yanto to make a call to Jubilee Pizza, which again is the pizza place that is mentioned a lot of times in the show. And I like how it's continued on here. And finally, Tosh knows it's a touchy subject to talk about what happened to Torchwood London, i.e. sort of the Doctor Who episode Doomsday. They don't really like to talk about what happened at Torchwood London. And I find that interesting because if you think about it, it's mentioned in the first, I think the first or second episode of the series. I think it's mentioned in one of the books as well. There are other Torchwood bases. So you've got the London one. I think there's one in Scotland. There's another one that's gone off the grid, it's gone missing. They just don't know where it is or what happened to it. And then you've got the Cardiff branch. And it's funny how we've only really seen the London and the Cardiff branch and how different they are. How Jack runs things and how things were run in London. In London, they were very sort of pro England. England's the best. England's this. England's that. Very close to being very fascist and very sort of a bit sort of okay, tone it down a bit, Hitler sort of thing. And then you look at Torchwood Cardiff and how it's really different, and how that thing of the reason they probably don't like talking about Torchwood London is the fact of we know what they were doing there and we know what they were like, and they're very sort of England first and all this crap. And it was that's probably a very sore subject of we know what they were like there, but we just don't talk about it because we're different. Which is good, because Torchwood Cardiff is far better. If I had to choose whoever to be a part of it, it'd be Torchwood Cardiff. But also I want to know more about that Torchwood operation that went missing. That's another fascinating one, because again, I'm a big fan of X-Files and things like that. So I want to know what happened to the disappeared team. What happened to them? Where were they based? I think it's mentioned in the series. I can't remember, but what happened there? So I love that. But yeah, so that's all sort of the continuity I could find. As for my sort of overall thoughts, just give it a read. Give it a go. It's brilliant. Like I said, it's really, really good. It's my top. Out of the 3, it is the number 1. It's Slow Decay, Border Princes, and Another Life. And it's just really, really good. And I can't recommend it enough to anybody who's a Torchwood fan, anybody who's a Doctor Who fan. Of course, watch the show, watch the series, watch sort of series 1, read the books. I'm reading this in September. I kind of wish I left it to October, to tell you the truth, because even though it's not scary, it's creepy, and a lot of body horror and a lot of sort of creepiness about it and psychological stuff. And it's one of those where it's just that would have been great for Halloween. But I digress. Either way, I'm glad I've read it. It's just brilliant. it's really, really good. And to be honest, by the time this episode comes out, October will just be beginning. Halloween is round the corner. So I would say, like, if you haven't read any of the Torchwood books, any of the three that I've read so far, you can find them online for cheap. You can get the sort of Kindle books if you want, or you can get the audio books online. And just give all three of them a read through Halloween. They're all great. They're all fantastic. And I love them. Yeah. And I am generally, I don't know if you can tell in my voice, I'm generally really happy and glad that the last book that I read for now, in terms of Torchwood, ends on such a high. Because if it ended on a low, it really, really bummed me out. So I'm glad it ends on such a high and is really, really good. And it is the first Torchwood novel that I actually give a 5-star, which is kind of funny because I gave Another Life 3 stars, which is good, but like it was missing a few things, as I mentioned. Border Princes, again, yeah, I gave it 4 stars. I think the reason I didn't give it the full 5 was the ending, was the fact of the ending was all right. I just wish there was a bit more. And then Slow Decay gets the full hog, 5 stars, like excellent, like recommend it. It's brilliant. So I'm really glad about that. As for what is coming next, so as I mentioned months and months ago, when I first started talking about me looking into the Torchwood books, and when I was talking about Another Life, I mentioned that I was going to read the first 3, and then once then I was going to move on to Doctor Who. Yes, that's technically still right, but also plans have changed. So in the interim, sort of while I was reading these books, I have been buying other Doctor Who novels. I've got a few Doctor Who Target novelizations. I've been buying the Doctor Who magazine because I have recently got back into Doctor Who, and a few of the episodes have come with Doctor Who audio Target novelizations. So I have Doctor Who Enlightenment by Barbara Clegg, which is a hold on. I think it's a 4th Doctor story. It's got the White Guardian. Stephen Percy reads the intrigue of the 5th Doctor. So it's a 5th Doctor story. And then I've got Revelation of the Daleks by Eric Sarwood, read by Terry Malloy, who does the voice, with Nicholas Briggs, who does the voice of the Daleks. This is a 6th Doctor story. And I've also got a book, Doctor Who, The Evil of the Daleks by Fraser Hines, which is a 3rd Doctor, 2nd Doctor novelization. And I've got a few Doctor Who novels as well. And what my plan is that I want to start looking into a lot of the classic era books, the Target novelizations and things like that. I've also got a 1st Doctor story. I've got loads of Terrence. I've got the 2-volume Terrence Dicks collections that I've got a lot of Terrence Dicks Target novelizations of a lot of the episodes as well, of all different Doctors. So I want to read those. So that's my plan, really, is like I was going to jump straight into series 3 of Doctor Who. But what I want to do instead, I want to look into a lot of the classic era of Doctor Who, but also I want to go back. So before I started this podcast, I read the 9th Doctor, Christopher Eccleston, and Billie Piper Rose New Adventure stories. And now I've reviewed a lot of the 10th Doctor and Rose's stories. I reviewed all those, and then I went on to finish the series, and I went to Torchwood. I want to go back, and I want to revisit and review a lot of the adventures with the sort of 9th Doctor and Rose. So that's what I want to do as well. But I also want to look into the Big Finish stories that Christopher Eccleston has recently done. So I want to review those. So I don't know when I'm going to get round to series 3 of Doctor Who, but again, like I said, in the interim, while I'm reading and reviewing those books and those audio ventures, I'm also going to be collecting the Doctor and Martha stories as well, and again reviewing those when and where. I've already got one. I've got one so far called the Stings of the Zygon, which is going to be fun because I don't have that much experience with the Zygons, so it should be fun to see, fun to read. So once I've done all that, and I've sort of fed my Doctor Who universe urge, shall we say, and I've done a lot of Doctor Who coverage, I will eventually come back to Torchwood and I'll watch series 2 and I'll review that one, and then we can get back into reading the books. If you've enjoyed my review of the Torchwood book so far, again, I do appreciate it. I do apologise if you want me to look into more Torchwood and I don't do any time sooner. I do apologise, but again, please do stick around. Please do check out my Doctor Who book reviews that I'm going to do soon, and then I've done in the past, and again, all I've reviewed series 1 of Torchwood, so again, check that out. Check out my review of series 1 and series 2 of Doctor Who as well, with Chris Eccleston and David Tennant. Check those out. I also did the 60th anniversary specials, the Star Beast, Wild Blue Yonder, and the Giggle, so they're all up as well. So there's a lot of Doctor Who and sort of Torchwood content out there. But rest assured, I will come back to Torchwood. I absolutely love and adore this world and this universe and these characters. And I'm really excited because like book 4 sounds amazing. It's called Something in the Water by Trevor Backensdale, which I think I've actually read a few books by Trevor Backensdale. To be honest, I can't really remember. I know he's done a lot of Doctor Who books. But that sounds fascinating to me, to be honest. I'll even read the blurb because it'll be a while before I get around to it, so I probably won't remember it, but I'll read the blurb just for those that have liked my my Torchwood coverage so far. So it goes, Dr. Bob Strong's GP surgery has been treating a lot of coughs and colds recently, far more than is normal for the time of year. Bob thinks there's something up, but he can't think what. He seems to have caught it himself. Whatever it is, he's starting to cough badly, and there are flecks of blood in his hanky. Sasuke Harden has been found on a number of occasions submerged in ponds or canals, but alive and seemingly none the worse for wear. Sasuke is not on any files except in the medical records at Dr. Strong's GP practice, but Torchwood's priorities lie elsewhere, investigating ghostly apparitions in South Wales. They have found a dead body. It's old and in an advanced state of decay, and it is still very much able to talk. And what it is saying is water hag. So that sounds incredible. That sounds very magical and witchy. So I look forward to reading that one. But again, it'll be a while. So I just thought I'd read it for now. But yeah, I've had an absolutely fantastic time with the Torchwood books. Hopefully you listeners have as well. If there are any other sort of books that you'd like me to look into, not just Doctor Who, not just Torchwood. Again, I also look into the Goosebumps books as well. Monster Blood is next on my list. So that'll be coming near the end of Halloween. Hopefully, if I can get round to it during the Halloween season, because I've got a lot of spooky things planned in the next coming week. So again, looking forward to that. But, you know, anything else, like I look at the Star Wars, I mean, I'll look at the Halo ones, but I'd also love to look into the Star Wars novels. I'd like to look into other sort of novels, video games, and other pop cultures and fandoms. So again, if there's anything that you think I'd like and enjoy, or I haven't talked about, or you'd want me to talk about, then by all means, please let me know. And yeah, just before I finish off, I just remembered I was going to talk about the Weevils, and this is going to be nice. This is going to be a nice way to wrap up the episode. I know I was getting to a close there, but this is going to be a nice way to wrap it up. So, as I mentioned this in my Series 1 review, and I've mentioned it in the books as well, and I know I mentioned it in the introduction to this episode. But basically, the long and short of it, not to get to rehash all that, the long and short of it, I've always felt there was more to the Weevils than I originally thought, and there are. And I know I mentioned it in the introduction, but what I've learned now about this story, if I'm reading this story and reading how, because the Weevils play a big part of it, especially for the first and a little bit in the second half of the story, the way they react to sort of Lucy, the way they react to Marianne, the way they act to this creature, the way they react to whatever is attacking their people, it's not how you'd expect a vicious animal to react, because vicious animals, predators, are usually solo hunters. They're very sort of on their own, all for one. Again, apart from like pack wolves and things like that, majority of predators are very sort of singular. But the way that the Weevils are acting and is very much the fact of they're very communal. They mourn their dead. They care about, when people die. They're showing fear, and they're showing so many emotions. And I would just love a whole book just going into detail about the Weevils. I would love a story on the Weevils. Will we ever get one? I don't know. Maybe in series 2, maybe series 3 we will. But I just really, really love and enjoy them. And they've gone up there now. So like my favorite monster of the modern era of Doctor Who are Slitheen. And I've said many times how I really want the Slitheen to come back. I love the Slitheen. I think they're brilliant. They're so imaginative and so interesting as monsters and characters. That it's a shame that we haven't got any more of them. And it's the same with the Weevils now. Like, I'm just enthralled with them. I'm just like, in fact, if I just want more Weevils, just give me more of that. I know they're like a side monster, but I just want more of them. And I've even got a plan of like, I want to collect, like, I want to buy myself a few Weevils. So I've got a nice little pack of Weevil toy figures. And I want to do the same with like Slitheen. I want to buy some Slitheens, and I've got like a little family of Slitheens as well. So yeah, I just love the Weevils now. By the end of the story, I'm like, yeah, I love the Weevils. I think they're fantastic, and I just want to see more of them. So yeah, I just love how this book expands more on the Weevil lore, and you just learn more about them. That they're not just mindless killing things; they're actually more of a pack. They're more of a family. They're more of a group and a herd than just mindless killing machines. And I'm glad for that, and I'm really glad that they sort of expanded on that world building. I really appreciate it. But yeah, that is everything. To be honest, that is all she wrote. Again, I hope you all had a fantastic time. I know I did. I had absolutely brilliant time. I'm looking forward to looking into Doctor Who again and looking at the past Doctors as well. And, even potentially watching some old classic Doctor Who, because I've been saying for ages I want to watch classic Doctor Who, but I've never really gotten around to it. So now's my opportunity. Now's my chance to get around to watching a lot of the classic episodes, to reviewing them, as well as reading a lot of the books. So I am excited for that. And I hope you all are too. And I hope a lot of you guys stick around and listen to a lot of those Doctor Who episodes. And I hope I've gained some new fans as well from my Torchwood episodes. So fingers crossed, I can get through a lot of that stuff as quickly as I possibly can. And then we can come back to Torchwood. Hopefully I'm aiming some potentially next year. If I can do it and I can get through it quite quickly, then hopefully sometime next year I can get back into Torchwood. But we will see. Apart from that, I've absolutely fantastic time, and I can't wait to what comes next. So I'll see you all in the next episode. You'll be listening to the Howdy Beans podcast. Please leave a like and subscribe if you're listening on YouTube. If you're listening on Spotify, don't forget to leave a 5-star rating. Don't forget to follow me. And yeah, I've had an absolutely brilliant time. I've been your host, Luke the Howdy Bean, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Bye-bye.